just got back from a road trip where I had to change a flat tire on a small airplane. And the only way to jack it is with the tie-down points under the wing, where you unscrew the little ring that you put the rope through normally, and you screw in a set of jack points. So and the problem is the airport that this airplane landed at and got the flat tire was out on an island. Have to get there by ferry. There is a vehicle one jack to jack up one wheel. It just didn't make sense to bring a vehicle out there. It could be, I've heard someone say like $500, and I'm not surprised because I drive a large van. Actually, I would have had to take my own vehicle because of height and length restrictions for most of the trips they do with vehicles. So I come up with this for how to get the jack out there. My boss has these jacks, and he actually bought them so he could transport them in an aircraft. And I had actually never taken these apart before, and I had to figure out how to do this after we'd already accepted the job. But this right here is the bottom base plate of the jack, and this actually makes for a very, very good and easy to use system, because part of the problem in jacking an aircraft and taking jacks with you somewhere is jacks are heavy and they're bulky, and usually they're all welded together, and it takes two people to lift them in and out of a vehicle, and you don't want to have to lift that high. Well, they may have wheels on them. Those wheels aren't really designed to go very far, like back and forth across the hangar or to the corner where you store them. Not on and off a vehicle, on and off a ferry. So that's why I had to figure this out. And the box, as you saw at the beginning, that was a last minute brainstorm. But it actually worked very well, because I needed something that would fit a ram that long, as well as all the braces that hold this together, and that big triangular piece, because I was thinking of like a smaller cardboard box that would fit this. But then I was like, how in the world am I going to carry that thing? And then I found this bin. We use it to put interiors in when we're doing annuals on aircraft, and the customer has a bunch of their stuff and doesn't want it sitting around like a yard sale or getting lost, to put the stuff in. And I put everything in, and I was like, well, this will work. This is pretty good. And then I put this piece in. I went, oh, that won't work. However, a little bit of work with my handy dandy razor knife, and voila, it does work. And not only that, but on the cargo, the little cargo wagons, I guess you'd call them, they're double decker, they have cloth on the outside, that you put everything in. These fit like they were made to go on those cargo dollies. And the freight, they can actually charge you for oversized freight because of the extra handling and time it takes. Because the weight wagons, they hook them all together and have a thing that looks like the end of a snowblower, and they actually just tow them all off like a train and on. But this right here, I could actually put my toolbox on top of it, and it was perfect. They couldn't complain that it was oversized freight, try and charge me more. And even when I got on and off on the island, these bins are tough enough, I had to drag it. It doesn't have wheels. That'd be the one improvement, if I could find one this size with wheels. But anyways, I'll show you how this goes together now. Obviously, if I drag this around too much, it is going to wear through. But hey, I'll go buy another one if that's an issue. always want to make sure you put your bolts back in the same holes they came out of so you don't lose them. But the important bolt is that one right there. Because you don't want the jack flopping around. Now they do give you a couple extra holes in there. I think it's so you can make some sort of a setup to keep this thing from spinning around, but it doesn't hurt anything if it does. Oh, the other important thing, I gotta figure out what brand or company these are. That rubber plug, that is the fill port. We have 2 of these jacks. The other one is missing that rubber plug. If you take this one on a trip and you lay it down and it rolls, all the fluid's gonna run out. So definitely need to find another plug for that one if I ever had to take both of them. But shouldn't have to. And this threads into a hole right there in the bottom. You don't have to go ridiculously tight on stuff, but you do want it tight enough it can't come loose. So we use these just normally around the hangar. Yesterday morning when I was sort of in a panic to get everything together and get out and on the road to get to the ferry, it was the first time I ever took this apart. So it was a learning experience. And then your next part is these 3 rings. Another ring and the 3 supports like that. And just for fitting it in the box, I took one of them off like that, just to make it easier. These actually tighten down once you've got them secured down here, and they grab onto this thing so it can't move around as well. Overall, it's a very good design, and like I said, we use these every day in the hangar for annuals and everything else, and they'll work perfectly fine that way. And then when you do need to go somewhere, they're perfect for that. I don't even know if they're sold necessarily to be something you can travel with or not, but they work well. And by putting them in this big bin, I just got at Home Depot. It's a 40-gallon, called a Tough Tote. And the plastic, I think, is a little thicker, and I know chopping the hole in the lid on some of them, there isn't much to the lid in the first place. These have a little bit more rugged design, but it worked perfectly, considering I had no idea how I was going to do it when I left, and I accepted the job. And just imagine trying to carry a jack like this on and off a ferry. If I showed up with it like this, yes, they would have charged me extra freight because it wouldn't have fit on the cargo dolly in this configuration. Or I would have run into something like that piece falling off and disappearing. And as it was, it worked out nicely because I could bring this bag here and have an air compressor, because of course you need to put nitrogen in the tires. If you don't know, you're breathing over 70% nitrogen. Air gauge, stem removal tool, torque wrench, just in case I needed it. This is a piece of threaded rod for pulling wheel halves together. Turns out these are Behringer wheels, you need them, jack points. And because they're Behringer wheels, metric Allen sockets. But it worked out. And it all fit in the box just nicely. And the other nice thing about this is it doesn't take that long to take apart, put back together. because it would be ridiculous if this had to come apart into every little piece. And then once you get your 3 legs tight, you just torque these bolts down 3 sides. And they have this stop nut here, and that is actually your way of safetyness so that doesn't come loose. Stop nut. And that way, this won't come loose while you use it around the hanger, and who knows, it'll be a few years before it has to come back apart again to travel. But it's ready to go and ready to be used anywhere it's needed around the hanger. It's still a useful tool. It's not some sort of a you know, travel thing that just sits on the shelf the rest of the time. It's actually a useful tool for everyday work.